Hey guys, Jack and welcome back. And the game we're going to be focusing on for this week before the international break will be Chelsea versus Manchester City at Stamford Bridge. Let's jump into it. To come into this game having beaten Tottenham 4-1 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and it was one of the worst performances that I've seen under Pochettino, where they just didn't look kind of clued in. And I think I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about they were panicked, and I think they kind of were. There's not a lot of experience in the side. I mean, Thiago Silva is the only one I think who's regularly starting over the age of 30, and you saw how much panic they were. Like the likes of Nicholas Jackson didn't kind of understand kind of where he was in the offside department, and it was definitely a struggle. I was surprised, like when I was watching it, how this kind of it took him a while to kind of get clued in on everything. And I agree with some pundits that said that it's probably one of the worst hat tricks they've ever seen, and I do agree with that. It wasn't great, but at least one thing that come out of it is that they got the victory, they got through it, and I say they do a lot of confidence to the likes of Nicholas Jackson. But I think it's going to be very difficult. Man City, on the other hand, obviously got a big win against Bournemouth, courtesy of Jeremy Doku with a goal and 4 assists, and also getting a 3-0 win over Young Boys in the Champions League. And I think it's going to be a very difficult tie for Chelsea, even though it's going to be at Stamford Bridge. And they tend to have turned up for bigger teams, like you saw with the 1-1 draw over Liverpool. And even though Tottenham went down to 9 men, they did they get through it in the end. Just Man City have been a machine this season. After a bit of a tetchy start, they've come back. They've come back into it. They're starting to pick up form a lot more, and a lot of their performances are very dominant, very comprehensive. Erling Haaland hasn't been at the ridiculous form that he's been in, but that's obviously because Kevin De Bruyne has been injured. But besides that, they have everyone fit really. I think John Stones is a bit of a doubt, but otherwise they have a full squad. While Chelsea on their hand are still missing a lot of key players, obviously, and Nkunku won't be back until probably late November, early December. Chukwuemeka, I think, is believed to be in training. Fofana, maybe Broya, like they're missing a lot of top players. And even though we've seen the likes of Cole Palmer, who's set to return, and I'm sure without a doubt he'll start for them, I just think it's going to be very difficult for Chelsea. While I do think they will have it, they will get something from this game because of the way they're able to level up against these bigger teams. I do think Man City are just going to have be quite dominant throughout the game. And for that, I'm going to go with a 3-1 win to Manchester City. Wolves versus Spurs, and Spurs are missing a lot of key players. Madison apparently could be back. I think he just only suffered a slight knock, a slight scare. While they're missing the likes of Van de Ven, who could be set to miss, I think, 8 to 10 weeks with a hamstring injury. Romero's obviously suspended, and Udogie, who will be obviously suspended as well. And while they do have the likes of Ben Davies, who could come in, they're definitely going to need to figure out what they're going to do with that second centre back spot. Because it seems like Eric Dyer will be coming in, but will they play Ben Davies on that left hand side? Will they bring in Ashley Phillips for his debut? Because it's going to be very difficult for them. And this is not an easy tie against Wolves. Gary O'Neill hasn't had the rub of the green, and his team has been performing well, but they just haven't got the results. And I think this is where Spurs might become a bit undone. Lacking a bit of defensive nous. Not really nous, but they're going to be lacking the personnel that they've had. I mean, Romero and Van de Ven have been inseparable, since the start of the season, and obviously only Pedro Porro will be the only, should we say, regular, defender in that side. So I think it's going to be very difficult. And with how everything has been going on for Wolves, I think the rub of the green's finally going to go towards them. I wouldn't be surprised if they get a call towards them, and I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. Arsenal picked up a big win against Sevilla in midweek, and after a difficult game, a controversial game against Newcastle, they needed that kind of win, and I think this is another chance in the league to pick up 3 points. As we've spoken about before, Burnley haven't been great. They've been struggling to kind of get into the games, and they've been struggling to get into the system. And while they're going to be away at the Emirates, I don't see Vincent Kompany changing his ways. And with this young side, you're going to have to, I understand that there's a lot of potential there, but he needs to maybe call on the likes of Charlie Taylor and a few other more experienced players to rile up the group and to potentially nullify Arsenal. But I think, given that it's at the Emirates Stadium, I feel like Nketiah is going to potentially start in this game, because while he has been great away from home, this is a good opportunity for him to pick up a couple of goals. And they have a chance of resting players, but I think he's going to play a strong side. I'm going to go with 3-0. That's not just free-flowing going forward as they were towards the end of the season with Roy Hodgson last season, but that's because they lost a lot of personnel due to injury. But with Eberechi Eze back, and he just signed a new deal, I think it's going to bring the club a lot of confidence. While Everton, who have played reasonably well throughout the season, but they, again, same like Wolves, they haven't got the rub of the green. But they've looked a lot better now in recent weeks, and both teams, I say, are going to be secure towards the end of the season. I'm going to regret that now in a couple of months, but I think this is going to be a game where both sides are going to just kind of, poke each other out, and I think the likes of Sam Johnston, Mark Gahey will keep everything quiet for the majority of it, and I think it's just going to be a 1-1 draw. Manchester United haven't looked great now this midweek, having lost to FC Copenhagen 4-3, and they were comfortable to start the game. While they weren't the most flashy, they were doing well to capitalize and got 2 goals. But after the Rashford sending off, they struggled to defend, and obviously a few mistakes cost them, and a few sketchy calls. But they definitely could have they came back, but it wasn't enough for them to pick up a win, and now they're left last at the end of their group. Erik ten Hag has struggled in recent weeks trying to find a system to play, personnel to play, and it just doesn't seem to be working right. And I'm really struggling to see how they're going to fit in, how they're going to kind of keep up a consistent run of form. While Luton, on the other hand, have been high flying despite not picking up all the wins. They got a draw against Liverpool, having gone up one, and I think they're going to give it a tricky game for Man United. Although it's at Old Trafford, they will sit and block and try to break. And I think Man United are going to struggle to break them down. It's going to be a very difficult task for Ten Hag, and he needs to pick his personnel correctly. Will he give the likes of Pellistri chances, maybe Hannibal Mejbri, who can kind of get in the action, or will he, because Rashford won't be there for the next Champions League game against Galatasaray, will he play him here, or will he opt to drop him because he hasn't been on form recently? I think with everything going on, I think he will want a result from this. And while I do think Luton will bunker down, I do see Man United picking up a win, and I think it's going to be a very sketchy 1-0 win. Newcastle are struggling with injuries, and it was evident when they played against Dortmund. While they did play really like they were committed throughout the entire game, just didn't have the quality to make a difference. And they definitely could have scored a couple, but it just wasn't to be, and Dortmund dispatched them appropriately. But I think coming into this, they're going to have a few more players back fit. Callum Wilson could be back for this, even though he's a doubt, having suffered an injury during the Champions League game. But I think they have enough quality, especially at wide, to cause them issues, the likes of Anthony Gordon and Joe Linton, who can come from deep. And potentially youngster Jacob Miley, I think his name is. That's going to be that he could be getting starts now with the likes of Tonali and Elliot Anderson set out to miss out. Bournemouth, on the other hand, I think it's going to be a very difficult game for them. They're struggling a lot, and while they did pick up a win against Burnley a couple of weeks ago, they were promptly brought back down to earth against Man City. And I don't know how they're going to face against this Newcastle side. But I do see the quality of Newcastle, shining here, and I'm going to go with a 3-1 win to Newcastle. Had a shock defeat against quite a surprise defeat for Aston Villa. Aston Villa had a bit of a shock defeat against Nottingham Forest because everyone probably believed that they were going to dispatch them easily. But credit to Forest and Steve Cooper, they did really well. And I'd say Unai Emery, who will be wanting to get a result from this upcoming Europa League Conference League game, which I haven't seen as I'm recording this, but they probably be looking for a rebound after quite a game where they wasted chances, and it would cost and a Martinez mistake that cost them a goal. And they're going to be facing Fulham, who, while they haven't been great going forward, they've looked relatively solid in the back line. They seem to set up quite well, and they're really disciplined. And I think it's going to be a difficult task for Villa to break them down as much. And I do see Fulham getting a goal from maybe a set piece, but I just think the likes of Ollie Watkins, Moussa Diaby, Liam Bailey, John McGinn, Douglas Luiz, they definitely, they have enough quality to surpass, to come out on top. And I'm going to go with a 2-1 win to Aston Villa. Brighton haven't picked up a league win since late September against Bournemouth, and while I do think it's going to be difficult for them to break down this Sheffield United side, I think this is going to be the day that they get their first win since then. While Sheffield United got a big win against Wolves, it was through a few dodgy calls from VAR and referees. And while it would have done their confidence a lot of good, I just don't think they're going to have the quality, and especially against Brighton, who will struggle in this game because Sheffield United will sit in a low to mid block, and Brighton have struggled to even break down those kind of teams. While they, and I think it's going to be counterattacks that Sheffield United are going to rely on. I just think with the quality that Brighton have and talent that they have, I think they will get something from this game. It won't be a pretty game, but I'm going to go with a 1-0 win to Brighton. Liverpool have been in good form. Although they did get the draw against Luton, they showed they were creating a lot of chances, but they just weren't finishing some of them. I think this is going to be a case where against Brentford, they're going to get a lot of chances, especially at home, but Brentford will frustrate them. I think set pieces will be part of Liverpool's downfall in this game. While I do see in the end of it all, Liverpool coming out on top, Brentford will make it difficult, and I wouldn't be surprised if they pick up a point or even 3. But because it's going to be at Anfield, and Liverpool have shown great fight, and especially with Luis Diaz's family issues going on, not family issues, but his father still being in captivity, that hopefully that gets resolved, and things seem to relax around the club. I do think it's going to be very difficult And while I was going to say it's going to be, Liverpool are going to get something from this game, I just feel like Brentford will cause a lot of issues, and obviously those things going on in the back end of the club. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. David Moyes faces Steve Cooper at the London Stadium, and I think this is going to be a bit of a touchy game. I think it's going to be a game full of moments, and there won't be kind of a team that will be particularly, dominant. While I do see maybe West Ham getting a bit more from this game, having the likes of James Ward-Prowse, and Mohamed Kudus, who's looked to settle in incredibly well, and obviously Jared Bowen. Nottingham Forest look more cohesive as a side. They seem to work really well as a unit, and I wouldn't be surprised if Steve Cooper has them set up appropriately. With this game, I think it's going to be, as I said, moments game, so whether it's going to be set pieces or counter-attacks from one or the other club, I see this just being a 1-1 draw. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care.